hello. Hi, Solar. I see you've got yourself all nice and tucked in. That's always nice. Hello there, big chumbusses. Welcome in. As you can see, today's stream is going to be different from all the others. Because today, read the book. As that is what was asked of me yesterday, we'll back up a bit. And then, go ahead and help everyone get some rest. It's been a strange period of time the past day. But at least I'll be here to take us to somewhere completely different for a few hours as we get ready to face whatever comes on tomorrow, Monday. Okay, because you remember crushing on the dragon. That's very fair. I should probably get the books. Hi, Artemisi. I don't think we have a dragon in this one, though, but it is Fellowship of the Ring, which is always nice. Last I left off on this, we finished book 1, and then we'll be starting book 2. Basically, Frodo had gotten stabbed by the ring wraiths, slowly dying. Finally, got on that horse, rode across the river, passed out. We're at that part where he wakes up. Ah, good old smile. I should probably read The Hobbit as well. One of the main reasons why I started reading the actual books is because, of course, I had watched the movie. All the movies, but I'd never actually read the books, and man, while it's mostly the same, there's so much detail, a lot of singing. I just don't know where to start. Big same. I just figured I'd start with the Lord of the Rings trilogy book set that I bought. So we have pages to turn through. You were looking forward to this, Artemisi? That's wonderful. Hopefully, it's everything you were looking forward to. And if I'm lucky, more. So, who's ready? I'm ready. With Chapter 1 of Book 2 of the Fellowship of the Ring, with the chapter titled Many Meetings. Frodo woke and found himself lying in bed. At first, he thought he had slept late after a long, unpleasant dream that still hovered on the edge of memory. Or perhaps he had been ill. The ceiling looked strange. It was flat, and it had dark beams richly carved. He lay a little while longer looking at patches of sunlight on the wall and listening to the sound of a waterfall. Where am I? And what is the time? He said aloud to the ceiling. In the house of Elrond, and it is 10 o'clock in the morning, said a voice. It is the morning of October the 24th, if you want to know. Gandalf, cried Frodo, sitting up. There was the old wizard, sitting in a chair by the open window. Yes, he said, I am here, and you are lucky to be here too. after all the absurd things you've done since you've left home. Frodo lay down again. He felt too comfortable and peaceful to argue, and in any case, he did not think he would get the better of an argument. He was fully awake now, and the memory of his journey was returning. The disastrous shortcut through the old forest, the accident at the prancing pony, and his madness in putting on the ring in the dell under Weathertop. While he was thinking of all these things and trying in vain to bring his memory down to his arriving in Rivendell, there was a long silence, broken only by the soft puffs of Gandalf's pipe as he blew light smoke rings out of the window. "Where's Sam?" Frodo asked at length. "And are all the others all right?" "Yes, they're all safe and sound," answered Gandalf. "Sam was here until I sent him off to get some rest, about half an hour ago." "What happened at the ford?" said Frodo. "It all seems so dim somehow, and it still does." "Yes, it would. You were beginning to fade," answered Gandalf. "The wound was overcoming you at last. A few more hours, and you would have been beyond our aid. But you have some strength in you, my dear hobbit, as you showed in the barrow. That was touch and go, perhaps the most dangerous moment of all. I wish you could have held out at Weathertop." "You seem to know a great deal already," said Frodo. "I've not spoken to the others about the barrow. At first it was too horrible. Afterwards, there were other things to think about. What do you know about it?" "You have talked long in your sleep, Frodo," said Gandalf gently, "and it has not been hard for me to read your mind and memory. Do not worry. Though I said absurd just now, I did not mean it. I think well of you, and of the others. It is no small feat to have come so far, and through such dangers, still bearing the ring." "We should never have done it without Strider," said Frodo. "But we needed you. We did not know what to do without you. Hello, Leilani. Welcome in." "I was delayed," said Gandalf, "and that nearly proved our ruin. And yet, I'm not sure. It may have been better so." "I wish you would tell me what happened." "All in good time. You are not supposed to talk or worry about anything today, by Elrond's orders." "Talking would stop me thinking and wondering, which are quite as tiring," said Frodo. "I am wide awake now, and I remember so many things that want explaining. Why were you delayed? You ought to tell me that at least." "You will soon hear all you wish to know," said Gandalf. "We shall have a council as soon as you are well enough. At the moment, I will only say that I was held captive." "You?" cried Frodo. "Yes, I, Gandalf the Grey," said the wizard solemnly. "There are many powers in the world, for good or for evil. Some are greater than I am. Against some I have not yet been measured, but my time is coming. The Morgul Lord and his Black Riders have come forth. War is preparing." "And you knew of the riders already, before I met them?" "Yes, I knew of them. Indeed, I spoke of them once to you, for the Black Riders are the Ringwraiths, the 9 servants of the Lord of the Rings." Title drop. "But I did not know that they had arisen again, or I should have fled with you at once. I heard news of them only after I left you in June, but that story must wait. For the moment, we have been saved from disaster by Aragorn." Yes, said Frodo. It was Strider that saved us. Yet I was afraid of him at first. Sam never quite trusted him, I think. Not at any rate until we met Glorfindel. Gandalf smiled. I have heard all about Sam, he said. He has no more doubts now. I'm glad, said Frodo, for I have become very fond of Strider. Well, fond is not the right word. I mean, he's dear to me, though he is strange and grim at times. In fact, he reminds me often of you. I didn't know that any of the big people were like that. I thought, well, they were just big and rather stupid. Kind and stupid like Butterbur, or stupid and wicked like Bill Ferny. But then, you don't know much about men in the Shire, except perhaps the Breelanders. You don't know much even about them, and if you think old Barlaman is stupid, said Gandalf, he is wise enough on his own ground. He thinks less than he talks, and slower, yet he can see through a brick wall in time, as they say in Bree. But there are few left in Middle-earth like Aragorn, son of Arathorn. The race of the kings from over the sea is nearly at an end. It may be that this War of the Ring will be their last adventure. You really mean that Strider is one of the people of the old kings? Said Frodo in wonder. I thought they had all vanished long ago. I thought he was only a ranger. Only a ranger, cried Gandalf. My dear Frodo, that is just what the rangers are. The last remnant in the north of the great people, the men of the west. They have helped me before, and I shall need their aid in the days to come. For we have reached Rivendell, but the ring is not yet at rest. Suppose not, said Frodo. But so far, my only thought has been to get here. I hope I shan't have to go any farther. It is very pleasant just to rest. I've had a month of exile and adventure, and I find that has been as much as I want. He fell silent and shut his eyes. After a while, he spoke again. I've been reckoning, he said, and I can't bring the total up to October the 24th. It ought to be the 21st. We must have reached the ford by the 20th. You've talked and reckoned more than is good for you, said Gandalf. How do the side and shoulder feel now? I don't know, Frodo answered. They don't feel at all, which is an improvement, but he made an effort. I can move my arm again a little. Yes, it is coming back to life. It is not cold, he added, touching his left hand with his right. Good, said Gandalf. It is mending fast. You will soon be sound again. Elrond has cured you. He has tended to you for days, ever since you were brought in. Days? Said Frodo. Well, 4 nights and 3 days to be exact. The elves brought you from the ford on the night of the 20th, and that is where you lost count. We have been terribly anxious, and Sam has hardly left your side, day or night, except to run messages. Elrond is a master of healing, but the weapons of our enemy are deadly. To tell you the truth, I had very little hope, for I suspected that there was some fragment of the blade still in the closed wound. But it could not be found until last night. Then Elrond removed a splinter. It was deeply buried, and it was working inwards. Frodo shuddered, remembering the cruel knife with notched blade that had vanished in Strider's hands. Don't be alarmed, said Gandalf. It is gone now. It has been melted, and it seems that hobbits fade very reluctantly. I have known strong warriors of the big people, would quickly have been overcome by that splinter, which you bore for 17 days. What would they have done to me? Asked Frodo. What were the riders trying to do? They tried to pierce your heart with the Morgul knife, which remains in the wound. If they had succeeded, you would have become like they are, only weaker and under their command. You would have become a wraith under the dominion of the Dark Lord, and he would have tormented you for trying to keep his ring. If any greater torment were possible than being robbed of it and seeing it on his hand. Goodness, I did not realize the horrible danger, said Frodo faintly. I was mortally afraid, of course, but if I had known more, I should not have dared even to move. It is a marvel that I escaped. Yes, fortune or fate have helped you, said Gandalf, not to mention courage, for your heart was not touched, and only your shoulder was pierced, and that was because you resisted to the last. But it was a terribly narrow shave, so to speak. You were in gravest peril while you wore the ring, for then you were half in the Wraith world yourself, and they might have seized you. You could see them as they could see you. I know, said Frodo. They were terrible to behold, but why could we all see their horses? Because they are real horses, just as the black robes are real robes that they wear to give shape to their nothingness when they have dealings with the living. Then why do these black horses endure such riders? All other animals are terrified when they draw near, and even the elf horse of Glorfindel. Dogs howl, and the geese scream at them. Now, honestly, if any time I walked by, all the geese started, screaming and honking at me, I would be afraid. Very, very afraid. Because these horses are born and bred to the service of the Dark Lord at Mordor. Not all his servants and chattel are wraiths. There are orcs and trolls, there are wargs and werewolves, and there have been, and still are many, men, warriors and kings that walk alive under the sun, and yet are under his sway, and their number is growing daily. What about Rivendell and the elves? Is Rivendell safe? Yes, at present, until all else is conquered. The elves may fear the Dark Lord, and they may fly before him, but never again will they listen to him or serve him. And here in Rivendell, there live still some of his chief foes, the Elven-wise, lords of the Eldar from beyond the furthest seas. They do not fear the ring-wraiths, for those who have dwelt in the Blessed Realm live at once in both worlds, and against both the seen and the unseen, they have great power. Thought that I saw a white figure that shone and did not grow dim like the others. Was that Glorfindel then? Yes, you saw him for a moment as he is upon the other side, one of the mighty of the Firstborn. He is an elf lord of the House of Princes. Indeed, there is a power in Rivendell to withstand the might of Mordor for a while. And elsewhere, other powers still dwell. There is power, too, of another kind in the Shire. But all such places will soon become islands under siege if things go on as they are going. The Dark Lord is putting forth all his strength. Still, he said, standing suddenly up and sticking out his chin, while his beard went stiff and straight like bristling wire, we must keep our courage. You will soon be well, if I do not talk you to death. You are in Rivendell, and you need not worry about anything for the present. I haven't any courage to keep up, said Frodo, but I am not worried at the moment. Just give me news of my friends, and tell me the end of the affair at the ford, as I keep on asking, and I shall be content for the present. After that, I shall have another sleep, I think, but I shan't be able to close my eyes until you finish the story for me. Gandalf moved his chair to the bedside and took a good look at Frodo. The color had come back to his face, and his eyes were clear and fully awake and aware. He was smiling, and there seemed to be little wrong with him, but to the wizard's eye, there was a faint change, just a hint, as it were, of transparency about him, and especially about the left hand that lay outside upon the coverlet. Coverlet. Weird word. Still, that must be expected, said Gandalf to himself. He is not half through yet, and to what he will come in the end, not even Elrond can foretell. Not so evil, I think. He may become like a glass filled with a clear light for eyes to see that can. You look splendid, he said aloud. I will risk a brief tale without consulting Elrond, but be brief, mind you, and then you must sleep again. This is what happened, as far as I can gather. The riders made straight for you as soon as you fled. They did not need the guidance of their horses any longer. You had become visible to them, and already on the threshold of their world. And also, the ring drew them. Your friends sprang aside off the road, or they would have been ridden down. They knew that nothing could save you if the white horse could not. The riders were too swift to overtake, and too many to oppose. On foot, even Glorfindel and Aragorn together could not withstand all the 9 at once. When the ring wraith swept by, your friends ran up behind. Close to the ford, there was a small hollow beside the road masked by a few stunted trees. There, they hastily kindled fire, for Glorfindel knew that a flood would come down if the riders tried to cross, and then he would have to deal with any that were left on his side of the river. The moment the flood appeared, he rushed out, followed by Aragorn and the others with flaming brands. Caught between fire and water, and seeing an elf lord revealed in his wrath, they were dismayed, and their horses were stricken with madness. 3 were carried away by the first assault of the flood. The others were now hurled into the water by their horses and overwhelmed. And is that the end of the Black Riders? Asked Frodo. No, said Gandalf. Their horses must have perished, and without them they are crippled. But the ring wraiths themselves cannot be so easily destroyed. However, there is nothing more to fear from them at present. Your friends crossed after the flood had passed, and they found you lying on your face at the top of the bank with a broken sword under you. The horse was standing guard beside you. You were pale and cold, and they feared that you were dead, or worse. Elrond's folk met them, carrying you slowly towards Rivendell. Who made the flood? Asked Frodo. Elrond commanded it, answered Gandalf. The river of this valley is under his power, and it will rise in anger when he has great need to bar the ford. As soon as the captain of the ring-wraiths rode into the water, the flood was released. If I may say so, I added a few touches of my own. You may not have noticed, but some of the waves took the form of great white horses and shining white riders, and there were many rolling and grinding boulders. For a moment, I was afraid that we had let loose too fierce a wrath, and the flood would get out of hand and wash you all away. There is great vigor in the waters that come down from the snows of the Misty Mountains. Ah, the Misty Mountains. Yes, it all comes back to me now, said Frodo. The tremendous roaring. I thought I was drowning, with my friends and enemies and all, but now we are safe. Gandalf looked quickly at Frodo, but he had shut his eyes. Yes, you are all safe for the present. Soon there will be feasting and merrymaking to celebrate the victory at the ford of Greenham, and you will all be there in places of honor. Splendid, said Frodo. It is wonderful that Elrond and Glorfindel and such great lords, not to mention Strider, should take so much trouble and show me so much kindness. Well, there are many reasons why they should, said Gandalf, smiling. I am one good reason. The ring is another. You are the ring bearer, and you are the heir of Bilbo, the ring finder. Dear Bilbo, said Frodo sleepily. I wonder where he is. I wish he was here and could hear all about it. It would have made him laugh. A cow jumped over the moon, and that poor old troll. With that, he fell fast asleep. Well, everyone, the chapter's not quite done yet, but I am going to take a small little BRB just to drink some water and refresh. It won't be too long, and then we'll get right back into it. Alright, see you all in a bit. 'Cause I don't want anyone to hear the nice, extremely clear sounding gulping sounds. And I'm back. One really nice thing about reading like this is that it also does help clear up the throat. So it keeps me in tip-top shape for whenever I want to voice act. Thank you, Artemisi. It's good to be back. Ready for some more? And hopefully you all had a good day today. Guys have anything yummy to eat today? And hopefully you've had plenty of water too. Really dozed off. Glad to be doing my job then. And ready? Alright. Here we go. Frodo was now safe in the last homely house east of the sea. That house was, as Bilbo had reported long ago, a perfect house. Whether you like food or sleep, or storytelling or singing, or just sitting and thinking best, or a pleasant mixture of all of them, merely to be there was a cure for weariness, fear, and sadness. It's bedtime, you'll probably fall asleep listening to me. Sounds good. If you do happen to fall asleep on me, sweet dreams. I hope you can rest easy, and hi, Jam Jam. Thank you, Jam Jam. And again, welcome in. Get comfy and cozy, okay? As the evening drew on, Frodo woke up again, and he found that he no longer felt in need of rest or sleep, but had a mind for food and drink, and probably for singing and storytelling afterwards. He got out of bed and discovered that his arm was already nearly as useful again as it had ever been. He found laid ready clean garments of green cloth that fitted him excellently. Looking in a mirror, he was startled to see how much thinner reflection of himself than he remembered. It looked remarkably like the young nephew of Bilbo who used to go tramping with his uncle in the Shire. Eyes looked out at him thoughtfully. Yes, you have seen a thing or two since you last peeped out of a looking glass, he said to his reflection. Now for a merry meeting. He stretched out his arms and whistled a tune. At that moment, there was a knock on the door, and Sam came in. He ran to Frodo and took his left hand awkwardly and shyly. He stroked it gently, and then he blushed and turned hastily away. Hello, Sam, said Frodo. It's warm, said Sam, meaning your hand, Mr. Frodo. It has felt so cold through the long nights. But glory and trumpets, he cried, turning round again with shining eyes and dancing on the floor. It's fine to see you up in yourself again, sir. Gandalf asked me to come and see if you were ready to come down, and I thought he was joking. I am ready, said Frodo. Let's go and look for the rest of the party. I can take you to them, sir, said Sam. It's a big house, this, and very peculiar. Always a bit more to discover, and no knowing what you'll find round a corner. And elves, sir. Elves here, and elves there. Some like kings, terrible and splendid. And some as merry as children. And the music and the singing. Not that I have had the time or the heart for much listening since we got here, but I'm getting to know some of the ways of the place. I know what you've been doing, Sam, said Frodo, taking his arm, but you shall be merry tonight, and listen to your heart's content. Come on, guide me round the corners. Sam led him along several passages and down many steps and out into a high garden above the steep bank of the river. He found his friends sitting in a porch on the side of the house looking east. Shadows had fallen in the valley below, but there was still a light on the faces of the mountains far above. The air was warm. The sound of running and falling water was loud, and the evening was filled with the faint scent of trees and flowers, as if summer still lingered in Elrond's gardens. Hooray! Cried Pippin, springing up. Here is our noble cousin. Make way for Frodo, Lord of the Ring. Hush, said Gandalf from the shadows at the back of the porch. Evil things do not come into this valley, but all the same we should not name them. The Lord of the Ring is not Frodo, but the master of the Dark Tower of Mordor, whose powers again stretching out over the world. We are sitting in a fortress. Outside, it is getting dark. Gandalf has been saying many cheerful things like that, said Pippin. He thinks I need keeping in order, but it seems impossible, somehow, to feel gloomy or depressed in this place. I feel I could sing, if I knew the right song for the occasion. I feel like singing myself, laughed Frodo. Though, at the moment, I feel more like eating and drinking. That will soon be cured, said Pippin. You've shown your usual cunning in getting up just in time for a meal. More than a meal, a feast, said Merry. As soon as Gandalf reported that you were recovered, the preparations began. He had hardly finished speaking when they were summoned to the hall by the ringing of many bells. The hall of Elrond's house was filled with folk, elves for the most part, though there were a few guests of other sorts. Elrond, as was his custom, sat in a great chair at the end of the long table upon the dais, and next to him, on one side sat Glorfindel, on the other side sat Gandalf. Frodo looked at them in wonder, for he had never before seen Elrond, of whom so many tales spoke, and as they sat upon his right and left hand, Glorfindel, and even Gandalf, whom he thought he knew so well, were revealed as lords of dignity and power. Gandalf was shorter in stature than the other two, but his long white hair and sweeping silver beard and his broad shoulders made him look like some wise king of ancient legend. In his aged face, under great snowy brows, his dark eyes were set like coals that could leap suddenly into fire. Glorfindel was tall and straight. His hair was of shining gold, his face fair and young and fearless and full of joy. His eyes were bright and keen, and his voice like music. On his brow sat wisdom, and in his hand was strength. The face of Elrond was ageless, neither old nor young, though in it was written the memory of many things, both glad and sorrowful. His hair was dark as the shadows of twilight, and upon it was set a circlet of silver, for his eyes were gray as a clear evening, and in them was a light like a light of stars. Venerable he seemed, as king crowned with many winters, and yet hale as a tried warrior in the fullness of his strength. He was the Lord of Rivendell, and mighty among both elves and men. In the middle of the table, against the woven cloths upon the wall, there was a chair under a canopy, and there sat a lady fair to look upon. Hello, Stinky. And so, like was she in form of womanhood to Elrond, that Frodo guessed that she was one of his close kindred. Young she was, and yet not so. The braids of her dark hair were touched by no frost. Her white arms and clear face were flawless and smooth. The light of stars was in her bright eyes, gray as the cloudless night. Yet queenly she looked, and thought and knowledge were in her glance, as of one who has known many things that the years bring. Above her brow, her head was covered with a cap of silver lace, netted with small gems, glittering white, but her soft gray raiment had no ornament save a girdle of leaves wrought in silver. So it was, Frodo saw her, whom few mortals had yet seen, Arwen, daughter of Elrond, in whom it was said that the likeness of Luthien had come on earth again, and she was called Undoniel, for she was the even star of her people. Long she had been in the land of her mother's kin, in Lorien beyond the mountains, and was but lately returned to Rivendell, to her father's house. But her brothers, Eladan and Elrohir, were out upon errantry, for they rode often far afield with the rangers of the north, forgetting never their mother's torment in the den of the orcs. Such loveliness in living thing Frodo had never seen before, not imagined in his mind, and he was both surprised and abashed to find that he had a seat at Elrond's table among all these folks so high and fair. Though he had a suitable chair that was raised upon several cushions, he felt very small and rather out of place. But the feeling quickly passed. The feast was merry, and the food all that his hunger could desire. It was some time before he looked about him again, or even turned to his neighbors. He looked first for his friends. Sam had begged to be allowed to wait on his master, but had been told that for this time he was a guest of honor. Frodo could see him now, sitting with Pippin and Merry at the upper end of one of the side tables close to the dais. It seemed no sign of Strider. Next to Frodo, on his right, sat a dwarf of important appearance, richly dressed. His beard was long and forked, was white, nearly as white as the snow-white cloth of his garments. He wore a silver belt, and round his neck hung the chain of silver and diamonds. Frodo stopped eating to look at him. "Welcome, and well met," said the dwarf, turning towards him. Then he actually rose from his seat and bowed. "Loin at your service," he said, and bowed still lower. "Frodo Baggins, at your service, and your family's," said Frodo correctly, rising in surprise and scattering his cushions. "Am I right in guessing that you are the Gloin? One of the 12 companions of the great Thorin Oakenshield?" "Quite right," answered the dwarf, gathering up the cushions and courteously assisting Frodo back into his seat. "And I do not ask, for I have already been told that you are the kinsman and adopted heir of our friend Bilbo, the Renowned. Allow me to congratulate you on your recovery." "Thank you very much," said Frodo. "You've had some strange adventures, I hear," said Gloin. "I wonder greatly what brings 4 hobbits on so long a journey. Nothing like it has happened since Bilbo came with us. But perhaps I should not inquire too closely, since Elrond and Gandalf do not seem disposed to talk of this." "I think we will not speak of it, at least, not yet," said Frodo politely. He guessed that even in Elrond's house, the matter of the ring was not one for casual talk, and in any case, he wished to forget his troubles for a time. "But I am equally curious," he added, "to learn what brings so important a dwarf so far from the lonely mountain." Gloin looked at him. "If you have not heard, I think we will not speak yet of that either. Master Elrond will summon us all ere long, I believe, and then we shall hear many things. But there is much else that may be told." Throughout the rest of the meal they talked together, but Frodo listened more than he spoke, for the news of the Shire, apart from the ring, seemed small and far away, and unimportant, while Gloin had much to tell of events in the northern regions of Wilderland. Frodo learned that Grimbeorn the Old, son of Beorn, was now the lord of many sturdy men, and to their land between the mountains and Mirkwood neither orc nor wolf dared to go. Indeed, said Gloin, if it were not for the Bjornings, the passage from Dale to Rivendell would long ago have become impossible. They are valiant men and keep open the High Pass and the ford of Karak. But their tolls are high, he added with a shake of his head. And like Bjorn of old, they are not over fond of dwarves. Still, they are trusty, and that is much in these days. Nowhere are any men so friendly to us as the men of Dale. They are good folk, the Bardings. The grandson of Bard the Bowman rules them. Brand, son of Bane, son of Bard. He is a strong king, and his realm now reaches far south and east of Esgaroth. And what of your own people? Asked Frodo. There is much to tell, good and bad, said Gloin. Yet it is mostly good. We have so far been fortunate, though we do not escape the shadows of these times. If you really wish to hear us, I will tell you tidings gladly. But stop me when you are weary. Dwarves' tongues run on when speaking of their handiwork, they say. And with that, Gloin embarked on a long account of the doings of the Dwarf Kingdom. He was delighted to have found so polite a listener, for Frodo showed no sign of weariness and made no attempt to change the subject, though actually he soon got rather lost among the strange names of people and places that he had never heard of before. He was interested, however, to hear that Dane was still king under the mountain, and was now old, having passed his 250th year, venerable and fabulously rich. Of the 10 companions who had survived the Battle of 5 Armies, 7 were still with him. Wallow, Gloin, Dori, Nori, Bifur, Bolfer, and Bomber. Bomber was now so fat that he could not move himself from his couch to his chair at the table, and it took 6 young dwarves to lift him. And what has become of Balin and Ori and Oin? Asked Frodo. A shadow passed over Gloin's face. We do not know, he answered. It is largely on account of Balin that I have come to ask the advice of those that dwell in Rivendell. But tonight, let us speak of merrier things. Gloin began to talk of the works of his people, telling Frodo about their great labors in Dale and under the mountain. We have done well, he said, but in metalwork we cannot rival our fathers, many of whose secrets are lost. We make good armor and keen swords. We cannot again make mail or blade to match those that were made before the dragon came. Only in mining and building have we surpassed the old days. You should see the waterways of Dale, Frodo, and the fountains and the pools. You should see the stone-paved roads of many colors, and the halls and cavernous streets under the earth with arches carved like trees, and the terraces and towers upon the mountain sides. Then you would see that we have not been idle. I will come and see them, if I ever can, said Frodo. How surprised Bilbo would have been to see all the changes in the desolation of Smaug, Owen looked at Frodo and smiled. 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 You were very fond of Bilbo, were you not? He asked. Yes, answered Frodo. I would rather see him than all the towers and palaces in the world. At length, the feast came to an end. Thank you, Pew. And good to see you. Hope you're doing well tonight. At length, the feast came to an end. Elrond and Arwen rose and went down the hall, and the company followed them in due order. The doors were thrown open, and they went across a wide passage and through other doors, and came into a further hall. In it were no tables, but a bright fire was burning in great hearth between the carven pillars upon either side. Frodo found himself walking with Gandalf. "This is the Hall of Fire," said the wizard. "Here you will hear many songs and tales, if you can keep awake. But except on high days, it usually stands empty and quiet, and people come here who wish for peace and thought. There is always a fire here, all year round, but there is little other light." As Elrond entered and went towards the seat prepared for him, elvish minstrels began to make sweet music. Slowly the hall filled, and Frodo looked with delight upon so many fair faces that were gathered together. The golden firelight played upon them and shimmered in their hair. Suddenly, he noticed, not far from the further end of the fire, a small dark figure seated on a stool with his back propped against a pillar. Beside him, on the ground, was a drinking cup and some bread. Frodo wondered whether he was ill, if people were ever ill in Rivendell, and had been unable to come to the feast. His head seemed sunk in sleep on his breast, and a fold of his dark cloak was drawn over his face. Elrond went forward and stood beside the silent figure. "Awake, little master," he said with a smile. Then, turning to Frodo, he beckoned him. "Now at last the hour has come that you have wished for, Frodo," he said. "Here is a friend that you have long missed." The dark figure raised its head and uncovered its face. "Bilbo!" cried Frodo with sudden recognition, and he sprang forward. "Hello, Frodo, my lad," said Bilbo. "So you got here at last. I hoped you would manage it. Well, well, so all this feasting is in your honor, I hear. I hope you enjoyed yourself." "Why weren't you there?" cried Frodo. "Why haven't I been allowed to see you before?" "Because you were asleep. I have seen a good deal of you. I have sat by your side with Sam each day. But as for the feast, I don't go in for such things much now, and I had something else to do." "What were you doing?" "Why, sitting and thinking. I do a lot of that nowadays, and this is the best place to do it in, as a rule." "Wake up, indeed," he said, cocking an eye at Elrond. There was a bright twinkle in it, and no sign of sleepiness that Frodo could see. "Wake up, and I was not asleep, Master Elrond. If you want to know, you have all come out from the feast too soon, and you have disturbed me in the middle of making up a song. I was stuck over a line or two, and was thinking about them, but now I don't suppose I shall ever get them right. There will be much a deal of singing, and the ideas will be driven clean out of my head. I shall have to get my friend the Dunadan to help me. Where is he? Elrond laughed. He shall be found, he said, and then you two shall go into a corner and finish your task, and we will hear it and judge it before we end our merrymaking. Thank you, Frank, for starting another hype train. For the 5 gifted subs to Jam Jam, Valkyria, Juliana, to Zaris, and to Dusko. You like trains? Nice. I do too, actually. They are very, very relaxing. It gives me an idea, actually. See, I did get this background earlier today specifically because we are reading Lord of the Rings. I felt it was pretty fitting, honestly, being that we're in the woods of the elves. But, I would be down with some train ambience, the sound of the tracks hitting, constantly on the rails. And I could read with that too. That'd be fun. Hope you're doing well, Frank. And again, thank you so much for the gifted subs. I don't feel I deserve it, but I appreciate it all the same. Let's see, there we go. Messengers were sent to find Bilbo's friend, though none knew where he was, or why he had not been present at the feast. In the meanwhile, Frodo and Bilbo sat side by side, and Sam came quickly and placed himself near them. They talked together in soft voices, oblivious of the mirth and music in the hall about them. Bilbo had not much to say himself. When he had left Hobbiton, he had wandered off aimlessly, along the road or in the country on either side, but somehow he had steered all the time towards Rivendell. "I got here without much adventure," he said, "and after a rest, I went on with the dwarves to Dale, my last journey. I shan't travel again. Old Balin had gone away. Then I came back here, and here I've been. I've done this and that. I have written some more of my book, and of course, I make up a few songs. They sing them occasionally just to please me, I think, for, of course, they aren't really good enough for Rivendell. And I listen and I think, time doesn't seem to pass here. It just is. A remarkable place altogether. I hear all kinds of news from over the mountains and out of the south, but hardly anything from the Shire. I heard about the ring, of course. Gandalf has been here often. Not that he has told me a great deal. He has become closer than ever these last few years, but Dunadan has told me more. Fancy that ring of mine causing such a disturbance. It is a pity that Gandalf did not find out more sooner. I could have brought the thing here myself long ago without so much trouble. I have thought several times of going back to Hobbiton for it, but I am getting old, and they would not let me. Gandalf and Elrond, I mean. They seemed to think that the enemy was looking high and low for me, and would make mincemeat of me if he caught me tottering about in the wild. And Gandalf said, "The ring is passed on, Bilbo, and it would do no good to you or to others if you tried to meddle with it again." That sort of remark, just like Gandalf. But he said he was looking after you, so I let things be. I am frightfully glad to see you safe and sound. He paused and looked at Frodo doubtfully. Have you got it here? He asked in a whisper. I can't help feeling curious, you know. After all I've heard, I should very much just like to peep at it again. Yes, I've got it, answered Frodo, feeling a strange reluctance. It looks just the same as it ever did. Well, I should just like to see it for a moment, said Bilbo. When he had dressed, Frodo found that while he slept, the ring had been hung about his neck on a new chain, light but strong. Slowly, he drew it out. Bilbo put out his hand. Frodo quickly drew back the ring. To his distress and amazement, he found that he was no longer looking at Bilbo. A shadow seemed to have fallen between them, and through it he found himself eyeing a little wrinkled creature with a hungry face and bone-groping hands. He felt a desire to strike him. Music and singing round them seemed to falter, and silence fell. Bilbo looked quickly at Frodo's face and passed hand across his eyes. I understand now, he said. Put it away. I am sorry. Sorry you have come in for this burden. Sorry about everything. Won't adventures ever have an end? I suppose not. Someone else always has to carry on the story. Well, can't be helped. I wonder if it's any good trying to finish my book. But let's worry about it now. Let's have some real news. Tell me all about the Shire. Frodo hid the ring away, and the shadow passed, leaving hardly a shred of memory. The light and music of Rivendell was about him again. Bilbo smiled and laughed happily. Every item of news from the Shire that Frodo could tell, aided and corrected now and again by Sam, was of great interest to him. From the felling of the last tree to the pranks of the smallest child in Hobbiton, they were so deep in the doings of the Four Farthings that they did not notice the arrival of a man clad in dark green cloth. For many minutes, he stood looking down at them with a smile. Suddenly, Bilbo looked up. Ah, there you are at last, Dunadan, he cried. Strider, said Frodo. You seem to have a lot of names. Well, Strider is one that I haven't heard before anyway, said Bilbo. What do you call him that for? They call me that in Bree, said Strider, laughing, for that is how I was introduced to him. And why do you call him Dunadan? Asked Frodo. The Dunadan, said Bilbo. He is often called that here, but I thought you knew enough Elvish to at least know Dunadan, man of the West. Numenoir, Numenorian. What? This is not the time for lessons, he turned to Strider. Where have you been, my friend? Or why weren't you at the feast? Lady Arwen was there. Strider looked down at Bilbo gravely. I know, he said, but often I must put mirth aside. Caladan and Elrohir have returned out of the wild, unlooked for, and they had tidings that I wished to hear at once. Hello, Soleil. Good to see you and welcome in. Hope you're doing well. Well, my dear fellow, said Bilbo, now you've heard the news, can't you spare me a moment? I want your help in something urgent. Elrond says this song of mine is to be finished before the end of the evening, and I am stuck. Let's go off into a corner and polish it up. Strider smiled. Then, he said, let me hear it. Frodo was left to himself for a while, for Sam had fallen asleep. He was alone and felt rather forlorn, although all about him the folks of Rivendell were gathered, but those near him were silent, intent upon the music of the voices and the instruments. They gave no heed to anything else. Frodo began to listen. At first, the beauty of the melodies and the interwoven words in elven tongues, even though he understood them little, held him in a spell. As soon as he began to attend them, almost it seemed that the words took shape, and visions of far lands and bright things that he had never yet imagined opened out before him, and the fire-lit hall became like a golden mist above seas of foam that sighed upon the margins of the world. Then the enchantment became more and more dreamlike, until he felt that an endless river of swelling gold and silver was flowing over him, too multitudinous for its pattern to be comprehended. It became part of the throbbing air about him, and it drenched and drowsed him. Swiftly, he sank under its shining weight into a deep realm of sleep. Then, there, he wandered long in a dream of music that turned into running water, and then suddenly into a voice. It seemed to be the voice of Bilbo chanting verses. Faint at first, then clearer, ran the words. Earendil was a mariner that tarried in Arvernian. He built a boat of timber felled, in Nimberthil to journey in. Her sails he wove of silver fair, of silver were her lanterns made. Her prow he fashioned like a swan, and light upon her banners laid. In panoply of ancient kings, in chained rings he armored him. Shining shield was scored with runes to ward all wounds and harm from him. Sounds good, Julie. Sleep well. Sweet dreams. His bow was made of dragon horn, his arrows shorn of ebony. Of silver was his habergeon, his scabbard of chalcedony. His sword of steel was valiant, of adamant his helmet tall, an eagle plume upon his crest, upon his breast was emerald. Just here because the gentle voices helps you wind down. That is what I'm here for, my friend. So, rest easy. And just sing it for when you do. You know, people like to quietly tip out or fall asleep on their keyboards. Beneath the moon and under star, he wandered far from northern strands, bewildered on enchanted ways, beyond the days of mortal lands, from gnashing of narrow ice, where shadow lies on frozen hills, from nether heats and burning waste, he turned in haste, and roving still, on starless waters far astray, at last he came to night of naught, and passed, and never sight he saw of shining shore, near light he saw. The winds of wrath came driving him, and blindly in the foam he fled, from west to east, and errandless, unheralded, he homeward sped. There flying Elwing came to him, and flame was in the darkness lit, more bright than light of diamond, the fire upon her carrick net. The Silmaril she bound on him, and crowned him with the living light, and dauntless then, with burning brow, he turned his prow, and in the night, from other world beyond the sea, there strong and free, a storm arose, a wind of power in Tarmanel, by paths that seldom mortal goes. His boat it bore with biting breath, as might of death across the grey and long forsaken seas distressed, from east to west he passed away. Through ever night he back was borne, on black and roaring waves that ran o'er leaves unlit and foundered shores that drowned before the days began, until he heard on strands of pearl, where ends the world of music long, where ever foaming billows roll, and yellow gold and jewels wan. He saw the mountains silent rise, where twilight lies upon the knees of Valinor, and Eldamar beheld afar beyond the seas. A wanderer escaped from night, to haven white he came at last, to elven home, the green and fair, where keen the air, where panes glass, beneath the hill of Ilmarin, a glimmer in a valley sheer, the lamplit tower of Tyrion are mirrored on the Shadowmere. He tarried there from errantry, and melodies they taught to him, and sages old marvels told, and harps of gold they brought to him. They clothed him then in elven white, and 7 lights before him sent, as through the Calacirian, the hidden land forlorn he went. He came into the timeless halls, where shining fall the countless years, the endless reigns the elder king, and Ilmarin on mountain sheer. And words unheard were spoken then, to folk and men of elven kin, beyond the world where visions showed, forbid to those that dwell therein. A ship then new they built for him, of mithril and of elven glass, with shining prow nor showy shaven oar, nor sail she bore on silver mast, Silmaril as lantern light, and banner bright with living flame, to gleam thereon by Elbereth. Herself was set to thither came, and wings immortal made for him, and laid on him undying doom, to sail the shoreless skies and come behind the sun and light of moon. From Everin's lofty hills, where softly silver's fountains fall, his wings bore him a wandering light, beyond the mighty mountain wall. World's end then he turned away, and yard again to find afar his home through shadows yearning, and burning as an island star, on high above the mists he came, a flame distant before the sun, a wonder ere the waking dawn, where grey and northern waters run. They return to the waking sands. And over Middle Earth he passed, and heard at last the weeping soul of women and of elven maids in elder days and years of yore. But on him mighty doom was laid, till moon shall fade and orbed star, to pass and tarry nevermore on hither shores where mortals are, or ever still herald on an errand that should never rest, to bear his shining lamp afar, the flamifer of western east. The chanting ceased. Frodo opened his eyes and saw that Bilbo was seated on his stool in a circle of listeners who were smiling and applauding. "Now we had better have it again," said an elf. Bilbo got up and bowed. "I am flattered, Leindeer," he said, "but it would be too tiring to repeat it all." "Not too tiring for you," the elves answered, laughing. "You know you are never tired of reciting your own verses. But really, we cannot answer your question at one hearing." "What?" cried Bilbo. "You can't tell which parts were mine and which were Dunedain's?" "It is not easy for us to tell the difference between two mortals," said the elf. "Nonsense, Leindeer," snorted Bilbo. "If you can't distinguish between a man and a hobbit, your judgment is poorer than I imagined. They're as different as peas and apples." "Maybe. To sheep, other sheep no doubt appear different," laughed Leindeer. "Or to shepherds. But mortals have not been our study. We have other business." "I won't argue with you," said Bilbo. "I am sleepy after so much music and singing. I'll leave you to guess, if you want to." He got up and came towards Frodo. "Well, that's over," he said in a low voice. "It went off better than I expected. I don't often get asked for a second hearing. What did you think of it?" "I'm not going to try and guess," said Frodo, smiling. "You needn't," said Bilbo. "As a matter of fact, it was all mine, except that Aragorn insisted on putting in a green stone. He seemed to think it important. I don't know why. Otherwise, he obviously thought the whole thing rather above my head, and he said that if I had the cheek to make the verse about Earendil or the House of Elrond, it was my affair. I suppose he was right." "I don't know," said Frodo. "It seemed to me to fit somehow, though I can't explain. I was half asleep when you began, and it seemed to follow on from something that I was dreaming about. I didn't understand that it was really you speaking until near the end." "It is difficult to keep awake here until you get used to it," said Bilbo. "Not that hobbits would ever acquire quite the elvish appetite for music and poetry and tales. They seem to like them as much as food, or more. They will be going on for a long time yet. What do you say to slipping off for some more quiet talk?" "Can we?" said Frodo. "Of course. This is merrymaking, not business. Come and go as you like, as long as you don't make a noise." Oh, man. That went on for a while. Chapter's not done yet, though, but I do want to take another water break. So, I will go ahead and be right back. I won't be long. Promise. Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm back. It's kind of funny. I thought the chapter was going to keep going for, a little while longer. But it ends in the next 2 pages. Okay. Here we go. They got up and withdrew quietly into the shadows and made for the doors. Sam they left behind, fast asleep still with a smile on his face. In spite of his delight in Bilbo's company, Frodo felt a tug of regret as they passed out of the Hall of Fire. Even as they stepped over the threshold, a single clear voice rose in song. My Elvish is not good, so I don't know how I feel about reading it. I suppose we'll give it the old college try. Aelbereth, Uthoniel, Silivren Penna Miriel, Omenel Haglar Elenath, Na Sharid Halandiriel, O Galar Ramin Enorath, Anuilos Delinathan, Nephair, Si Nef Ayaria. What about that last word? Ayaran. There we go. Frodo halted for a moment, looking back. Elrond was in his chair, and the fire was on his face like summer light on the trees. Near him sat the Lady Arwen. To his surprise, Frodo saw that Aragorn stood beside her. His dark cloak was thrown back, and he seemed to be clad in elven mail, and a star shone on his breast. They spoke together, and then suddenly it seemed to Frodo that Arwen turned toward him. The light of her eyes fell on him from afar and pierced his heart. He stood still, enchanted, while the sweet syllables of the elvish song fell like clear jewels of blended word and melody. "There's a song to Elbereth," said Bilbo. "They will sing that and other songs of the Blessed Realms many times tonight. Come on." He led Frodo back to his own little room. It opened on to the gardens and looked south across the ravine to the Breenan. There they sat for some while, looking through the window at the bright stars above the steep climbing woods. Talking softly, they spoke no more of the small news of the Shire far away, or of the dark shadows and perils that encompassed them, but of the fair things they had seen in the world together, of the elves, of the stars, of trees, and the gentle fall of the bright year in the woods. At last, there came a knock on the door. "Begging your pardon," said Sam, putting in his head, "but I was wondering if you would be wanting anything." "And begging yours, Sam Gamgee," replied Bilbo. "I guess you mean that it is time your master went to bed." "Well, sir, there is a council early tomorrow, I hear, and he only got up today for the first time." "Quite right, Sam," laughed Bilbo. "You can trot off and tell Gandalf that he has gone to bed. Good night, Frodo. Bless me, but it has been good to see you again. There are no folk like hobbits after all for a real good talk. I'm getting very old, and I began to wonder if I should live to see your chapters of our story. Good night. I'll take a walk, I think, and look at the stars of Elbereth in the garden. Sleep well." is the end of Chapter 1, Book 2, in the Fellowship of the Ring. You know, it's good to be back. I'm not just saying that for reading Lord of the Rings again, but it's been a long while since I did any of my ASMR reading. And you know, it's always good to see when people enjoy it. Makes me feel like at least I'm doing something right. But everyone, I do think that at the end of the chapter, I will go ahead and put a close to this day's streaming activities. But don't worry, there will be more on Tuesday, where I read or play a game. You'll just have to be there and see. For now, everyone, sweet dreams, good night. Tomorrow will be another day. Make it a good one for me, okay? That is not the right button.